Hey everybody, this is Will Marlowe from the Will Marlowe Agency, and today I was going to cover some SEO history. So today we're going to talk about black hat tactics that we don't recommend and that we actually recommend you avoid. They may have worked well in the past, but now Google's on the lookout for them, and in all likelihood you'll either get no credit for doing these or you'll actually be penalized for using them. So, but it is good to know the history, because if you don't know the history, then you might try to do some of these potentially, and you might break the rules without actually realizing it. So, first one I want to talk about is keyword stuffing. So this one is simply where you saturate your content with way too many keywords. What you're really looking to do is use natural language. Google's gotten very good at picking up on the keyword intent that you're using. We still recommend that you put your keywords in the headlines, in page title tags, in URLs, and in ideally the first paragraph of your content. But beyond that, we want you to use natural language. And even in those areas, you should be using language that really makes sense. And if it feels like keyword stuffing, it probably is. And so you want to avoid that pretty much across the board. The next one down is cloaking. So that one's a little different. That means that you are presenting different content to search engines than you are presenting to users. So that is essentially a signal to Google that you're trying to trick them, and you should avoid that tactic. That's a pretty old one. It's not one that typically you could fall into by accident. Hidden text and hidden links, kind of related to cloaking. This is where typically you'd use white text with a white background, and you would be trying to just essentially trick Google again into thinking that you have way more keywords and way more content than you actually do. This is really easy for Google to spot. Definitely, we don't recommend it. Link buying. So this is just purchasing backlinks. This one you can actually get away with sometimes, but you've got to be very careful with it. If you're just straight up buying links from people who are in the business of selling them, then that's a big problem. You don't want to buy links from essentially link sellers. If you are paying for a sponsorship or paying somebody in some way that where they then give you a link, oftentimes that is legitimate. It's kind of like the link stuff, the keyword stuffing tactic that I mentioned. If it feels like you're doing the wrong thing, then you probably are. So you want to be careful on that. Link schemes. This is where you trade links or you work with a link farm or something like that. Google is on the lookout for these. They look for reciprocal links. So you link to me, I link to you. These types of things you want to avoid. Again, there are scenarios where you can do that in a natural way. And if it feels legitimate, it probably is. So you just want to be a little careful on that. Content automation. This one is very tricky because now in the last year, we've seen Chat GPT come out. That, of course, is content automation of a type. We don't know yet exactly how Google is going to treat it or how Google is going to detect it, but it is against Google's rules to use content automation. The rule here, though, is based on quality, in my opinion. And so, most throughout SEO history, content automation has universally been terrible. It is not a high quality way to produce content, and so therefore it was easy for Google to detect it because Google's always on the lookout for low quality content. With ChatGPT, that might be changing. So I still think your best bet is to use ChatGPT as a first draft tool, and you then make the content your own. That really puts you on safe footing. The next one down, duplicate content. So this is where you write a piece of content and then you just repurpose it across different domains, different pages. Essentially here, Google is going to find the first place your content has appeared. That's where you're going to get the credit. And then you can duplicate it all you want, but you're not going to get much credit for the duplicated content. So just keep that in mind. I always want to avoid Google penalties, so I don't like to put out duplicate content, even if there's a good reason to. I try to avoid it. And if you're doing it for the purpose of SEO, just know you're not going to get much benefit from that. The next one down is doorway pages. So this is when you create a page specifically for a search engine with the purpose of redirecting users to another page. This kind of thing Google looks down on. It's an old school tactic. I can't see how you would do this accidentally. I just thought I'd mention it, but I'm going to move on now. The next one down, user-generated spam. So this is where you allow users to post spammy or irrelevant content on your website. It used to be thought that if you did that, it would lead to the perception of more engagement. If you wanted to have 100 comments on a blog post, you might let bots post all these crummy links, these crummy pages or comments. It's really not a good tactic. It looks terrible to readers, and Google certainly doesn't reward it. So user-generated spam comments are really not a good idea. Same thing is true if you are the one leaving comments on other sites for the purpose of getting a link back to your own. It works when the comments you're making are really high quality, but if you're just posting, great blog post, great blog post, great blog post, and leaving links to your own site, it's not going to help. And that would fall into the scenario of user-generated spam. Next one down, social media automation. So that's where you're using bots or tools to generate engagement on social media platforms. Same thing as user-generated spam. I put it all into the same category. Next one down, what we call sneaky redirects. So this is where you're redirecting users to a different page than the one they expected to visit. Often it's going to be to an unrelated page, to a spammy website. These are, again, there's a very old school tactic. I can't see how you would do this one accidentally. There's really no value in this at this point. And so I would just steer clear of it, or any agency that recommends it. Misleading schema markup. So this is where you're implementing structured data markup in a deceptive way to gain rich snippets in search results. This is a more recent tactic. It, in my opinion, is either a matter of time before Google totally cracks down on it, or it's possible Google has already eliminated it completely. It seems like a very easy one for Google to crack down on. The next one down, I have somewhat mixed feelings on clickbait. So if you use a misleading or sensationalized title to attract clicks, then you can get in trouble for that. However, this is in the eye of the beholder. You need people to click in order to have good SEO. You have to write things that some people would consider them to be clickbait. It really just depends. The way that I define this is clickbait is really bad when it is misleading. So if you get somebody to click and you have misled them or deceived them in some way, then that's where you're on thin ice. If you're just writing a compelling headline, then you're doing what you should be doing. So I would just focus on writing compelling headlines, because if your headlines are boring, your SEO doesn't work. So you've got to tread the line between compelling headlines that encourage people to click and deceptive headlines. You cannot deceive people and expect to get good results. The last one down, cyber squatting. Registering domain names that are resembling an existing trademark or a brand in an attempt to profit. So the problem here is that Google has downgraded the importance of exact match keywords within URLs. So you're not essentially if you owned the URL redshoes.com, if somebody searches for red shoes on Google, you're pretty unlikely to come up for that. So therefore, if you were to buy a keyword like Nike shoes or Nike red Nike shoes, that even if there wasn't a trademark involved, which there is, you would still not profit from that very much. Or anything. So you want to avoid cyber squatting. You're just going to waste your money on expensive domains, and you're not going to get any SEO value. So there you have it. Those are in my opinion, the top black hat SEO techniques that we don't recommend. Google is on the lookout for all of these. They're all well known, and the chances of you getting away with them long term, in my opinion, are near zero. There still are some sites out there that used these tools 10 years ago, and maybe they're still getting away from with it. You don't let that fool you. It is impossible, in my opinion, to try to implement these tactics in 2023 and get anything other than bad results. So, hope this was helpful, and shoot me any questions or comments if you have any techniques you want me to add to the next installment of SEO history.